Hello, everybody. This is Gary Simon, and I'm the Chief Executive of FSN and leader of the Modern Finance Forum on LinkedIn. I'd like to warmly welcome all FSN's members and guests from around the world to what promises to be a fascinating interview around a leading-edge case study. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Andrea Rigamonte, who is Group Financial Controller at Senior Plc, a FTSE 250 group company with a market-leading position as a provider of engineering solutions to the commercial aerospace and defence markets, as well as having other interests. The group embarked on changing its financial reporting framework to enable a more responsive and agile decision-making environment that would better support senior management and give them real-time access to more granular information on demand at a group and divisional level. Andrea is going to share with us how they went about bringing about this transformation and winning the hearts and minds of those involved. At this point, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank the sponsor of today's webinar, which is CXO-Cockpit, a leading provider of digital performance reporting. As usual, we have a very packed agenda, but before launching into the webinar, I'd just like to cover a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to ask any questions, then please type your question into the box in the display panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try and get to it during the webinar, or if there isn't time, we'll reach out to you afterwards. So let's get underway. Andrea, are you there?
Yes, hi, Gary. Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here and take part in this webinar.
Super. It's always a relief when I can hear someone on the other end. So let's get started and take an easy question first, Andrea. Tell us about, please, Senior PLC, its business, what it does, its growth and expansion plans, just to help us sort of set the scene for the environment that you work in.
Yes, so of course, Gary. So as you can see in this summary slide, Senior is an international group that designs, manufactures, and sells high-tech engineering components and systems for the aerospace, defense, land vehicle, and energy markets. Our HQ is in the UK, and we have a widespread geographical reach with 14 operations in North America, 12 in the UK and Europe, and 5 in Asia. We rank within the largest 350 companies listed on the London Stock Exchange, and we have a current market cap of around £1.2 billion. Sales have reached just about £1 billion in the 12 months to June 2017, which was our last reporting date. And we have grown at an average annual pace of about 6.5%, both organically and through acquisitions since 2012.
Perfect. So a large, complex, multinational organization. So Andrea, given that sort of complexity and background, at what point did the group realize that it had outgrown its existing reporting framework, and what actually made you change? What was the catalyst for change, if you like?
Yes, Gary, there were actually a number of catalysts, really, and they gained significant momentum during early 2016. Around then, new senior management, new senior executive of the group had by then introduced standard quarterly business review meetings, and finance was asked to support and enhance the provision and availability of information at those meetings. We were also tasked to improve and standardize financial data and KPIs and take the opportunity to introduce visual dashboards, deliver clear narrative reporting in a modern interactive setting, and provide similar solutions, if they worked, to our colleagues outside of finance. And finally, try to remove the old approach of formal reporting through slow and unfortunately cumbersome Excel-based spreadsheets.
So you were entirely spreadsheet based at that point, or was there a sort of mixture?
Well, the the data was collected through BPC and then presented through Excel. And then within that Excel platform, we had a number of text windows, and a number of pages were then collated and put to PDF and emailed to the relevant users. So it was cumbersome, and it required dedicated resources to manage it. And given the complexity of it, we thought that there should have been a better way. Moreover, given that the data could have been pulled from the system at different times, there was also the possibility of information not being the latest, and different users looking at different information depending on which point in time they looked at it.
So a fairly typical scenario in a way. I think a lot of people will recognize those sorts of issues and difficulties with spreadsheets and inconsistent data, and I suppose they'll also recognize the drive to become a modern finance function to provide relevant KPIs, visual dashboards, narrative reporting, and also I was pleased to hear the solutions to non-finance functions, something that seems to crop up more and more, the need to relate to do good business partnering. So you left that old world behind in your spreadsheet reporting. In your experience, what are the crucial or important characteristics listeners to this webinar should be seeking in a modern financial reporting system?
Yes, Gary, there's quite a few important characteristics, I would say. And like we say in England, I think the key one is that we all should sing from the same hymn sheet by providing one version of the data, such that everybody has access to the same latest information at the same time. Then I would say reliability and flexibility are also key, as is the speed and provision and access of to the data itself. So there's a number of things there to consider, but taken together, I would say reliability and consistency is key.
Yes, I mean, I suppose consistency and one version of the truth go hand in hand, but you also point to some other pretty important characteristics like being able to combine narrative reporting with financials and numbers to get the overall picture. It sort of brings me on to my next question. What was the need for narrative reporting? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that. And why was it difficult to manage in your old environment?
Yeah, so it's important to understand we always had narrative reporting embedded within the numbers. So in the old environment in Excel, we had tables, numbers, text embedded within that. The problem was, of course, that it was not a native Word platform, and therefore text became cumbersome and difficult to read, as you can imagine, in such an environment. The real key for narrative reporting is that in a group such as ours, where you have a relatively large set of operations which are spread across different time zones, we feel that it's very important that local management is given the opportunity to provide a narrative by way of a trading update alongside the numbers. This would help them and us understand variances and the trading performance of the business, or if it's a forecast, what they are seeing going forward. It also gives them a platform for raising concerns or opportunities where necessary. And then, both divisions and group can circle back on any facts or situations where perhaps we should spend more time and attention. So we actually took this as a key requirement of the new system, and to have this as part of its native structure. Really, what we wanted was almost as you can imagine, an office-based Word window within the platform. That's what we wanted. And to be honest, that was a key differentiator among the set of interfaces that were available. Most of them, when we asked for text, struggled. Some allowed just a small set of characters by way of commentaries, almost like a tweet next to a number or next to a variance. And that was not what we wanted. We wanted to give the opportunity for people to explain in their own words what was important.
I mean, that's fascinating, because I think the value of commentary is sort of understated in many applications. Yet, as you say, if you want to explain things, you want to give a trading update, you want to explain variances, you want to raise issues, you need a bit more than a spreadsheet cell in order to put some text into it. So my understanding is you were already successfully using SAP's BPC platform for financial reporting and consolidation. And a lot of people out there will use different consolidation systems and different ERP systems, perhaps also to consolidate as well. So what I don't get is, what is the thinking behind the decision to use CXO-Cockpit on top of BPC, SAP BPC?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a key question, I guess, Gary. BPC is fundamental to what we do. You know, SAP BPC is key for us. But at the end of the day, it's just numbers and consolidation. CXO-Cockpit sits on top of BPC and, in short, brings the numbers to life and delivers these financials in an interactive framework. You can think of it as a management tool where the data can be mined by any users to the relevant level of access. Numbers can be analyzed and discovered. And we also introduced a number of interactive dashboards, charts, tables, bridges. And as I just mentioned, we now have clear narrative sections within reports. It is also what I call a repository of information over and beyond BPC, where we can quickly interrogate the system for budgets, forecasts, prior budgets, and in fact any prior periods or forecasts. And we can do all of this live at a meeting when we project CXO on a screen that is visible to all, and also do this over multiple platforms, including over an iPad or on the phone. So for example, I can trust that wherever I am, whatever time of day, I can get to the numbers very quickly. Be it a holiday, weekend, whatever, I can get to the numbers, and it gives me a sense of security and comfort. We can also take PDF outputs from the system that are designed in a way that can be clearly read, and for example, use them for board reports and formal reports that we need to produce from time to time. So BPC and CXO for us are complementary. CXO could not exist without BPC. BPC is the enabler. It's where all the data sits. Occasionally we get people saying, "Oh, CXO is showing a wrong number." It turns out that the wrong number was entered into the consolidation piece to begin with. So they work together, but CXO is where the data lives.
Right. So as you say, it's really about bringing the numbers to life. The BPC bit is your repository of data, your actuals and presume budgets as well, and then your CXO allows you to mine that data, add narrative, slice and dice, look at dashboards and so on. I'm not sure people listening will be pleased that they can now work holidays and weekends, get the data from anyway, but we'll skip over that quite quickly. Andrea, let's move on to to talk more about the sort of financial reporting system that you have. I mean, in my experience, few businesses actually succeed in having all of their performance management applications in one environment. But you, as you say, you do it, and there must be some sort of organizational impacts of that, economic and technical benefits of having, one reporting environment for statutory and management reporting. I mean, what would you say are the benefits of that sort of single environment?
Yes, and Gary, you said a couple of things that are very interesting. To me, one environment for the whole group is fundamental in ensuring the integrity and the reliability of the data. I think that is one of the key areas, and I would add consistency to that. It also keeps costs down, as you only have one system to manage, and you should be able to do that well by focusing resources, whether they're internal or external, to support such a system. In addition, all your user groups can help with debugging, managing, and also improving the one system that you are running. And an important byproduct, of course, is that you end up with a single environment that, by placing a strong set of controls and segregation of duties, can be relied upon for audit and external reporting purposes.
Yeah, it's so compelling. You wonder why more people still insist on having, all their data scattered around in different applications. But there we go. Consistency, keeping costs down. You also, as I understand it, now work to a sort of deeper level of granularity. Explain that to me a bit, Andrea.
Yeah, actually, if I can go back, when you said why do companies use different systems, occasionally, and I've seen that in previous employment, it happens when one system perhaps breaks down or doesn't provide the full data, then companies introduce another system to work alongside that and so forth, and that's why you end up with multiple systems and then potentially confusion down the line. Sometimes it just requires focus to get the one system you got working properly, to avoid that pitfall. To answer your question on the granularity. So at the end of the day, data, is one of the fundamental components of decision making, and therefore granularity, especially when you then deliver it over an environment such as CXO-Cockpit, where users can get to it. You essentially enable them to discover risks, opportunities, and just enhance their understanding of the variances or whatever it is that they're looking at. So it provides an enabler, it provides a framework and a level of detail that enhances the decision-making process.
And in terms of granularity, I mean, is it as deep as what you've got in your BPC environment, or is it more granular than that? Do you go back into, say, ERP? How massive is this amount of data that you hold?
No, so like I said earlier, Gary, it's CXO reflects BPC data. So if you've got it in BPC, you then pull it forward into CXO and present it. You bring it live. So in our case, we have data and granularity within BPC, such that our operations report on a monthly basis for forecasts, budgets, actuals, you name it, strategy, their data from the ERP into BPC. And then from BPC onwards, we consolidate and present the numbers. So the granularity is whatever you want to make of it. Must as well prevent granularity to drive complexity. So you just want the right level of granularity.
Yeah.
Not get clutter and complexity.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's knowing where to draw the line, where it's going to add to decision making, and when it's going to actually do the opposite by having too much complexity, too much data to worry about. I mean, we said as part of this webinar you were going to talk about how you win hearts and minds of stakeholders in such a major project, because you went, from spreadsheets, you went to quarterly management meetings supported by interactive reporting, quite, dramatic changes. And you didn't start that long ago, 2016. So tell me, how did you win hearts and minds in the people in what is a very large organisation.
Yes, winning the hearts and minds was key to the whole project. The group had been data hungry from even before this project, and all our operations were well versed in financial reporting. So that was not the issue. The issue was the change and the journey to drive this change through, and the embedding of the understanding as to why it was required. So we basically talked from group and from divisions to all parties that were involved with the project. And we did this through collaboration, with involving people, disseminating plans, and be quite open about risks and concerns, as well as opportunities for change. We updated people regularly. We lined out the key milestones throughout the project, and also we listened to concerns and addressed, what was a quite aggressive timetable with anyone that had concerns with that. We also held online meetings because obviously, as I said earlier, we had people from different parts of the world, so it was sometimes difficult to just meet face to face with everybody. The online platform worked very well for us in this case, and we gave everybody opportunities to voice their concerns in those meetings. Another aspect was training. We provided regular training and updates, and it was a journey where we all gradually learned and mastered what the system required. We also had another, as a byproduct of all of this, we had an opportunity to look at the underlying data, and by doing so, we actually managed to consider and remove as much duplicity in the data and complexity in reporting. So it was actually a benefit for a lot of our users that, once the system was introduced, they actually had in certain areas less reporting to complete on a month-by-month basis, because we removed a lot of the data that was not necessary. And then we did that over a few rounds as the year progressed.
So go on, carry on. Sorry.
So I was going to say, to do that, we had to redesign a lot of BPC templates and requirements, and then provide further guidance as to how to achieve that. But it was an interesting journey. So I would say, win the hearts and minds, but also sort out the underlying data at the same time, and then you're there or thereabout.
Yeah, so I can understand the decluttering, getting rid of redundant information, dormant trading entities, tax entities, and all that sort of thing that cleans up, the structure, and that's all, good sense, I would say. But nevertheless, a lot of these projects, in my experience, the benefit flows more to the group, to the centre, to the corporate centre, than it does to the reporting entities. How did you sort of convince them to come on board, that they'd get some benefit? You talked about they'd have a little less reporting and, things would be a little clearer, but was there anything else that convinced them to play ball?
Yes, absolutely. So for example, if we go back to these quarterly meetings that we have, when an operation presented at those meetings before we had this system, they had to produce a ton of paperwork, lots of different slides, spreadsheets. It was actually quite difficult to follow sometimes, because each individual operation would have their own set of tables and numbers and their own approach to explaining. CXO standardized all of that. So all of a sudden, you had very minimal preparation required to get to the meetings, because all the slides and tables and charts and graphs are all immediately available live from CXO. So it actually saved a lot of time and effort in preparing for these meetings. And this is just one example. There are a lot of other examples. We can take that to the budget meetings, where we have a similar process, and again, time is saved. The review meetings ahead of those budget meetings, where our divisions will look straight away at the final output and make comments and suggestions as they see fit. And of course, there is the whole management of the system, where we now have a central system management run by group, such that the operation no longer has to worry or be concerned with managing that Excel spreadsheet that they had, make sure it's updated to the right month and the right period, and occasionally get it wrong, and then everybody from group gets very frustrated and interested in them. And it's always the latest version. So I think it's quite a lot of benefits that we were able to explain and identify quite early on.
So
in addition,
so the big benefit I was hearing was, which is music to our ears, because in the Modern Finance Forum, our mantra is to standardize and automate to create the time you need to spend on the things that you want to do, like business partnering and adding value to the interpretation and use of the data, rather than manipulating numbers. So that seems to me to be a huge benefit. But sorry, I stopped you in full flow. You were going to say something else.
Yes, another benefit that we were, and by the way, yes, you're absolutely right there. But another benefit was that we wanted, I haven't quite achieved this yet, but we wanted to also create CXO super users down the sort of down from group into divisions and even down at operation level, such that they themselves could develop their own reports for areas that they may feel necessary to have a standard approach for their own operation. So that was definitely an enhancement that some of our perhaps more complex operation wanted to achieve.
When you sort of look around and you look at other groups, and you've obviously worked in other environments, what would you say is the most innovative part of what you're doing with CXO-Cockpit? How is this, if you wanted to inspire people listening today to do something like this, what would you say is innovative and so worthwhile?
Yeah, so Gary, on innovation, I would have to go for reporting agility and the speed of data provision. And yes, we've definitely moved forward and away from cumbersome, static, and unreliable Excel reports. I would say that this is the single advancement that we have achieved. But if you go back to the scope that I mentioned earlier, pretty much any one of those are key enhancements that we've achieved through CXO.
And has that agility that you talk about, has that turned into better decision making?
Well, in a way, time will tell, and I can't really say, if our decision making as such is better. However, we have enabled it to be a lot better, and we deliver the scope of what was required of us. The KPIs and the dashboards are all there, visible, consistent, so we can quickly move around the data and provide that information that is required for that decision making. And to be honest, at the end of the day, this is now integral within our meetings, and it's relied upon extensively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between computers and people, isn't it? You've done what you can to make it easier for people, but the actual decision is made by a person still. And as you say, you've got to wait and see whether decisions are actually better or not. Let's finish. I mean, you've done an awful lot, it strikes me, in a very short period of time. What are your next steps?
Yes, I've highlighted a few here, and I've touched on one or two already. But there is a lot that we want to move forward with. So, for example, we have now created many reports and visuals in CXO, and we would like to provide an index to quickly get to them. So that's a little project that we have down the line. And we would like to upgrade to the latest version. We started off on version 6 last year, and now they're up to 6.2. 6.2 has got some collaboration tools where you can have conversations among users, almost like an IM tool. But so therefore, for example, I could be asking a question on something that I'm just looking at in CXO, and somebody perhaps reply there and then, and go backwards and forwards outside of email. So that's something we're looking forward to. We would like to integrate predictive analytics, which is an area that we're starting to consider more and more. And then there's the business partnering that we touched on earlier. So we've already started running some dashboards for our health and safety colleagues. And the next area to consider is HR, where they also have quite a lot of data to look at, and they would like to use CXO for this. And then, it's the report writers and embedding them at divisions and beyond, so that each can develop their own area within CXO as they see fit.
I have to say I'm a real fan of instant messaging embedded in financial reporting, because at the end of the day it's a collaborative process, and if people can talk at the same time as working on particular problems, that has to be a great thing. Andrea, you've shared a lot in a very short space of time. Thank you for taking time out at the month end, and everybody listening doing the same thing to tell us about the exciting things you've done and the amazing progress you've made in a very short period of time. I wish you luck with your continued developments on this, and thank you for showing up today and telling us all about it. And thank you everybody for listening. Thank you.